Hi everyone, good evening. Welcome back to our Friday night session, Raising Hope with Dehumo Bickersteth. Last week's session was very good, and we received a lot of requests and private message asking a lot of questions. So tonight we are glad to have Dehumo back, and indeed we felt that the talk and also the insights from Dehumo, in fact, it's actually very helpful to a lot of people. Hey, Dehumo, welcome back.
Thank you, Joshua.
Hey, by the way, Dehumo, because of last week's session, indeed, we have a lot of questions, coming in. Indeed, one of these questions, I find it very interesting, and I thought indeed a lot of people actually in this kind of stage, and this person actually got retrenched, and he find it very difficult looking for new jobs because he was in his previous industry for more than 20 years. Then he was a little bit overwhelmed because looking at all these trends and stuff like that, which is very foreign to him. So he was asking, he said, what kind of advice you could give him, to better prepare himself, because he is not sure whether he has the capability to fit into the new norm or new industry, or even some the industry that is foreign to him. Okay, so he was quite nervous and stuff like that. So I thought, Dehumo, what kind of advice you could give him?
Wow, thanks. That's a very typical and also very common feeling, especially for people who have a lot of years of working experience behind them. In fact, a lot of times when I talk to people, I ask the question, after so many years of working, what would you say you're really good at? What is that one thing that you would say that with my 20 years of experience, I'm really good at this? And a lot of people actually, interestingly, find that very difficult to answer. So a lot of people have been involved in doing a lot of things at work, and they've changed roles and all that. Some people have been in a particular industry for a long time, working in different roles and all that. But then they find it difficult to confidently say that because I have 20 years of experience, I'm good at X or good at Y. And that got me thinking a lot about, why is it that, if you look at other industries, if you look at other areas of endeavor, like sports, for example, or other places where people do things for a long time, they can very easily tell you whether they're really good or how good they are in that area or not. Like a runner can tell you how good he is after running for 20 years, clearly, So it got me thinking about what is it about the experience of work that doesn't immediately translate into a sense of confidence around certain core capabilities or core areas of competence that allow you to walk out and say, look, I can do this. And people listen to you and you talk about it and they're like, okay, yes, this person definitely can.
So right there, Dehumo, you were saying actually there were some people, or there are some people, in fact, they've been working for in a particular industry for more than 20 years. He or she might not even have the confidence to say that they are good at something.
Yes.
Or they just repeatedly, doing some activities, for the past 20 years, but they are not sure.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And it's a very common sentiment. And I mean, at a later time, with more time, I can go into some details of some of the things that are responsible for that. But the underlying idea based on this person's situation and question is this idea that if you have 20 years of experience in working, you must have 20 years of capability in something.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in terms of common sense, you should be good at something at least. I've been cooking, noodle for 20 years. At least, it should be decently delicious.
Correct.
Yeah.
So to kind of take a step back, and I think that for people who struggle to pivot and who are in situations where, what they've been what they've taken for granted about their career, about their jobs for it, but suddenly gets taken away from them without their choice. Either you get retrenched or, the company is downsizing or whatever else. Because it wasn't your choice, you didn't choose to change, then the change was forced on you. You're no longer, you're not able to, some people find it difficult to answer the question of, okay, so where do I go next? One of the things I recommend for those who are still employed is put yourself through a process of re-interviewing for your job every year, for example. Ask yourself, why should this team and this organization hire me for next year? I'm not saying go and get interviewed for the job, but just go through that mental process to say, what value? Because the growth that you experience from going through from all those years of experience comes from the pursuit of value, right? Like if you remember the story I said last week about the janitor, about the two janitors, right? One was cleaning the floor. Both of them were cleaning the floor and there was a stain on the floor. The first one cleaned the floor and cleaned the stain and moved on, but the stain didn't go away, but he mopped the floor. He dragged the mop over that part of the floor and moved on. But the other one dragged the mop over the floor, so inverted comma, completed the activity of mopping the floor. But then he looked at the stain and realized that the stain hasn't moved down, which is the result, clean the floor. And because he couldn't achieve the result, clean the floor, he mopped it again, he tried to scrub it, then he went back to this cabinet and looked for a different solvent. Eventually, he got the stain out by doing different things, and then he moved on. The difference between the two of them is the first guy who just mopped the floor, completed the activity and moved on, he can't continue that job for the next 20 years and not be good at anything.
Yeah, definitely.
And that is almost like the crux of it. He won't be good at mopping the floor, but he will definitely be, he would have 20 years of experience of cleaning the floor, of mopping. The other guy, on the other hand, if he continues with that approach, then as his experiences grow, as what he encounters while trying to do his job expands, his capability also expands. But what's interesting about it is that he's learning and growing. Mm-hmm. And the only reason why he's learning and growing from those experiences is because he's not completing the activity, he's adding value, he's solving a problem. Mm-hmm. So for those who are still employed, my invitation is try to connect with the problem with the problems that you are able to solve, that you're able to and expected to solve in your role. Try and define your job based on the kind of problems that you are supposed to be solving for your team, for the department, for the organization, for the industry. If you can do that, then in the pursuit of those solutions to those problems, your experiences will naturally translate into development.
Mm-hmm. So while you are repeatedly fulfilling the activities, but in fact, you are also growing in terms of capacity.
Yes, because the problems would keep changing, or the context under which you need to solve the problems would change. And both of these changes would require you to adapt, to change, to learn, to respond in a different way, because you're not just trying to complete the activity, but you're trying to solve the problem. So you're either responding to a new version of the problem or to a new context within which you need to solve that problem. Either way, you have to learn, you have to adapt, you have to adjust. And that helps you grow.
Which is happening anyway. And indeed, whether there is a pandemic or no pandemic, there's always changes happening. The scenario is different, the situation are different.
Correct.
So you are thinking that, in fact, the realization of this scenario is actually very important.
Exactly. So as long as you do that, I think that's it. Now, when you think of someone who just got retrenched and for whatever reason, or who's in a position where they didn't choose to be changing jobs, but they now are confronted with the requirement to find a new job. If you reframe that context, it basically means that you've got a new problem to solve, which is finding yourself a job, in a new context, which is without a job. You could be looking for a new job in a different, while you are employed, or you're looking for a new job while you're not employed. So the context is you're not employed, so you might have some financial pressures. And then you've got the problem of finding a job. Now, the question we want to ask is, what is your capability in responding to that challenge? And how has your past experiences prepared you to solve that problem.
Yeah.
Now, because of this, I'm going to share something. Let me see if I can just pull it up. And it's going to help you understand this idea that, in life, as you grow as an adult, whether you're working or not working, there's a part of you that's growing. And then as you start working, there's another dimension that you're building capability in. And when you are confronted with this new problem, find a job in a new context while I'm unemployed, the question of what capability can you draw on has to be answered by looking at what type of capabilities have you developed up until this point that you can then lean on in this context. So let me try and pull that up. Let me see if I can do that. Okay, I think, yeah. So this is a very, very simple visual. And I'm just going to spend a few minutes just to quickly explain. And then if you guys on the call can just follow along with me, and then you can begin to use this to reflect. The center circle is you. That's who you are. And regardless of whether you're at home, you're in school, you're at work, you're in a religious activity, whatever you're doing, that you is the one doing it. So by default, all those experiences are potentially growing that you, not just work experiences. All those experiences are growing that you. So that you is becoming more capable. When we talked about capacity the last time I was on here, that's the person we focused on. That person that's in that tunnel, that person that's resilient, that person that's taking action and moving forward regardless of how dark the tunnel is, knowing that there's light at the end. That is the you. And that's not just limited to work experience. It's developing even at home. Interactions with your family, with your spouse, with anyone. The second circle is what you're doing. Again, this activity layer is tied to you, whatever you as a person are doing, regardless of where you're doing it. It could be in your religious context, it could be at home, it could be at work. It's what you're doing. And then the third circle, which is the domain expertise, is where you're doing it. And that's when we really start talking about, either it's a job and which job it is, or it's at home, or it's a religious activity. That's when we start thinking, okay, where are you doing these activities? So if you think about it, one thing that's expected to constantly grow and develop the longer you are, as long as you're alive, is the center circle. Adversity helps to build that. The way you respond to success helps you build that. The way you respond to challenges helps you build that, regardless of where those challenges are. And that strength that you develop in that inner self is what you use to respond to future challenges and future opportunities, including this problem of finding a job when you have no job. So question one, back to what we said last week. Are you in touch with how capable you actually are? The you, not your job. So don't look at yourself from the perspective of your performance review or from your field, but you as a person. Ask yourself, if I take all that away, how confident I am in myself?
All right. For instance, I try to understand the visual deal more. Like, say if someone has the ability to persevere, whether is he a father where he has the patience to nurture the child, or he is a team leader in his company, he has the patience and perseverance to complete a task, or he is a community leader in his institution, religious institution. He has the perseverance to complete, let's say, a building project. So that particular capability of perseverance, in fact, it's within that person, whether or not, what kind of activities, which he is in, as long as he has the perseverance, he's able to, fulfill the task in whatever he is. So do I understand correctly?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I think to even make it more understandable, let me expand that based on that example you gave. So at the center level, the way you're thinking, we talked about this a bit last time, right? The way you're thinking is evolving with your experiences in life. If you pay attention, you can actually improve your thinking. You can control how you're thinking. You can be a bit more conscious about the decisions you're making, the assumptions you're making, particularly when your assumptions are leading you to take or not take actions that could potentially produce the results you want. And then the second is your emotions, which you talked a bit about last week as well, and how those begin to impact your ability to or not to do certain things. And as you grow in life, you begin to pay attention to how your emotions affect you, what they feel like, and how you can be in more, not so much control only, but leverage them, or at least know what they are, so you're not controlled by them, if you know what I mean. And then the third is actually your interaction with other people, and how you relate to other people, and how you interact, communicate, engage, etc. with other people. These dimensions are always present in whatever you are doing, because you are doing it. And therefore, there's an opportunity for you to improve. So now that you're in that new problem state, you need to ask yourself, how are you thinking? How are you feeling? And how are you leveraging your relationships? Based on your understanding and the capabilities you've built in those three areas up until that point. You know, what is your strength? What is your understanding of that? A lot of people are pulled down by their emotions, and maybe this is an opportunity for you to, and maybe you've never had a reason to do that for the last 20 years. Everything has just been smooth. So you've never actually encountered an emotionally challenging situation until now.
Yeah, all right.
So you're completely like overwhelmed. You don't even know how to deal with it, because it's a very different feeling. You don't have the capacity nor the capability emotionally, and therefore you need help someone who can help you manage those emotions so that they don't affect the way you're thinking and what you're doing that will produce the results you want. Right. So that's an example. From people that are very good in terms of they build such strong social capabilities in terms of, they're just very good with people, and that's a result of the kind of jobs or roles or experiences they've had over the years. And that capacity and that capability is just really strong. And you see how that relates to activities, which is the second level here. So in the activities piece, like Joshua just mentioned, if you are the sort of person who's very very socially capable, you're more likely to also be very effective in activities that have to do with people, right? Engaging people, working with people, etc. Again, this is not profiling. I'm just saying that if you're thinking about activities, the examples here, I'm not going to go into details, but the activities, anyone is doing all those things, but some resonate more with you than others. So if you are like Joshua mentioned, at home, you're actually you're a real connector. You're really able to connect with people and have real conversations. Then at work, if you continue to be you, then the chances are you're going to do well in terms of just helping people think and connect, and the same kind of activities, which manifest in different kinds of jobs. It could be even as simple as a management role or a sales role, or a customer service role where you're paying attention to people and all that. But it's not the job that we're concerned about, is the activity where there's a lot of connecting with people, for example. If you're the sort of person like me who just loves to really think about problems and come up with solutions and turn them around, but then you're more a thinking, then you're going to be more creating. You're going to do a lot more creating than you're going to do. And for me, I don't really like too much social interactions. I like to stay in my mind. So I know that I can perform activities that have to do with like product development or solution development, or any kind of creating something, right? Or responding to a problem with a solution. And then for some people, they just want to execute the solutions. So if you notice, I've tried to describe those things to show, like Joshua was describing earlier, that in your experience up until now, and I'm not going to talk about domain first, if you take away everything else and just ask yourself, which of these three areas do I feel that I've been using a lot in the past 20 years? Cognitive, interpersonal, or interpersonal, right? Where do I feel I'm the strongest in terms of within myself? And where do I feel a little bit uncomfortable? And this is an opportunity for you to work on it, to get some help on that. Number two is, in my past 20 years, which activities of these 5, executing, engaging, creating, have I spent the bulk of my time? Right? And when we start using this framework to help you reflect, What it does is it allows you to say that even if you decide to go and take a job in the third, which is the domain sector, in any industry, the way that you respond to that job will now be significantly more valuable, regardless of what that job is. It also means that it frees you from approaching jobs purely from an industry perspective, but rather from a value-adding perspective. Let me show you what I mean. So I've talked to a couple of people who say, oh, I have 20 years financial services experience. And then you go for a little deeper and the person has been working in, for example, HR, human resources, or in compliance. And so I tell the person, well, you have 20 years human resource experience working in financial services. So don't say you have 20 years. So you have two domain experiences there. One is human resources and one is financial services. Now, what is the point here? The point here is that when you bring your offer to the table, your offer is not financial services. Your primary offer first, at least at the domain level, is the human resource activities you're involved in. That's the first level. So the question we ask you is, can you bring those practices to life? Can you bring that value in other industries? Hospitality, biopharm, the same human resource practices that you over 20 years in financial services. Now, the answer to that question is back to what we said at the beginning. How clear are you about the human resource problems you were solving in financial services? Or were you just mopping the floor? If you were very clear about the problems, the human resource problems you're solving, then you're able to offer that value of solving those same kind of human resource problems in any industry. But if you're not aware of the human resource problems you are solving in financial services, then you don't know enough to be able to solve those problems in any other area because you don't know what you were doing.
I get you, Dehumo. I think this is one great news for a lot of people out there. So regardless of any, which domain or which industry you spend your past 20 years, indeed, if you have expertise and experience in human resource, even you are moving from the F&B industry to a newly set up tech startup, although you know nothing about app, but in dealing with people, even it is F&B, tourism, hospitality or tech company, there are people, being lazy,
the same problems.
Actually, the same problem.
The same opportunities,
Wow. So you are actually, wow, I think this will enlighten a lot of people. So regardless of the industry, in fact, the competency level or the capability that you possess indeed will help you to actually, you've been developing yourself, you've been growing.
Yes.
The domain is actually not an issue at all.
Yes. And that is if you're looking for the job at the domain level. So at the domain level, that means you're looking for jobs using your human resource capabilities in any other industry, including the financial services where you have 20 years experience. That's option one. So, but that option is only viable if you have human resource domain expertise that you can confidently speak to, so that someone who sees that you only have financial services experience, but hearing you talk, realizes that you actually have human resource expertise. So it doesn't matter what the domain is. If they bring you in, you would ask the right questions and you can provide solutions in that new context very quickly. If you're not capable at that domain level, so this is an invitation to people who are still employed to pay attention to that domain expertise. That even though you're in financial services, which domain are you operating in that industry? Because that's where you're building expertise. But if you don't have that, or you don't feel confident to be able to pitch all the opportunities available to you and not allowing you to offer your domain expertise as an option for getting a job, then you go one level lower and focus on the activity circle. If it's engaging, then you start talking more about not the HR, but just engaging. Is there a customer service role? Is there a sales role? Because you would excel in those activities because that's where you spend a lot of your energy. So now you're not trying to offer your capability as a human resource potential. You're offering your ability to execute this activity regardless of context.
Wow.
And you're finding jobs where that activity is primary. If you're creating, then you're finding jobs where, coming up with solutions is primary. And when you talk, people can hear that that's actually how you process things. They can see that you have expertise in that kind of activity and you're able to pitch. Obviously, the opportunities that you access when you drop down to the activity layer without the domain might be lower than where you're coming from, but the opportunities open up wide, a lot wider than if you were looking at HR, for example, or finance or compliance domain. So when you start looking at the activity, looking for opportunities at the activity level, the choices open up significantly. Even if you end up with a job that looks like X, but because you know that you are a natural, that this is where your strengths are in terms of activity, and that activity is normally part of most jobs, the way you'd respond to that job would mean that not only will you succeed, but you might actually grow pretty fast in that job. Back to what I was saying earlier, after going through this experience of adversity and all that, if you respond to it properly, whatever job you get, you'd actually look back and say, oh, I'm almost like, thank God that happened to me, because this spout of growth and opportunities I'm seeing now, I would never have seen it if I wasn't forced to, because I didn't choose the change, right? And then finally, if the activity level is really still challenging, then you can actually find opportunities by just focusing on the competency level.
By just doing yourself,
Just you. Now, obviously, again, the opportunities that come up at just you would not offer the same level of returns as the activity, and definitely not as much as the domain, but it would still be true to where you can excel. And the point about this is, as long as you know how to respond, how to approach any job you do get in a way that's authentic to you, you will excel. And that's what this opportunity is giving you, a chance to take a step back and approach every job with this idea in mind, that in this job, there is a me. And if I can do the job like me, I would succeed. I would excel. And excel doesn't mean just perform. It means perform. Excel means to perform and to grow. Because there is if you are really pursuing performance, which is what we talked about the difference between the two janitors, then by default, you're going to be growing. And the only way to truly pursue performance is if you approach the job with your true self. And it doesn't matter what the job. So let me quickly clarify this. I'm not saying you find a job that you're good at. I'm saying you find a way to do a job as you.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's very important. I mean, the ability and the competency you already possess within yourself, you should actually, grow yourself and also get a job that you can actually what do you call that? Living out your true you.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
And every job you get, trust me, it has so many dimensions and possibilities. You have to know enough about how you want to do it that would allow you to excel and be yourself and excel. The last thing you want to do is feel that you're conditioned to do the job in a way that is not you, because then you're going to be back into the whole janitor mopping the floor situation. What I'm saying is, any job, if you choose it right, it's fine. Any job, take a step back and say, these are the activities in the job, right? I want to focus, I want to use the engaging aspect of the job to excel. And I'm going to use that to get the results of the rest of the stuff in the job. Because that's where my competence is the strongest. That's really where I feel the most natural and the most confident. So that reflection is important. And if you get this right, then like I said earlier, that question I asked a lot of professionals, you'll be able to answer very easily and feel comfortable answering it, because every time you're growing and you're getting better at something, and you know what it is at the center level, you know what it is at the activity level, and you know what it is at the domain level.
Yeah. Wow, this is so powerful. I think the chart and also all these graphical indeed give us a very clear image and for better understanding. Wow, I think this is yet another very insightful session we have with Dehumo. Thank you so much. And for all the audience out there, if you need, I believe that tonight's session will help you tremendously. But if need be, you need, you probably say, I don't even understand which kind of, know what kind of competency level I do possess or stuff like that. You can always, leave your comment if you have any question, or you can always click on the resources we provide below. You even to schedule a session to talk to Dehumo, and Dehumo will love to talk to you to help you to excel. And wow, I think this is so wonderful and very helpful to a lot of people. So yeah, do stay tuned for our next week's session, that we will continue to have session with Dehumo. And yeah, do find, if you have any question, do leave a comment, and I think Dehumo will tries his best to answer your question, even to it might direct our next episode, the direction of the next episode. So yeah, thank you so much, Dehumo, and thank you for all the audience out there. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.